Everybody, Smart Web Freak fans, welcome back to another episode of the Smart NFT podcast. I'm your host, using MC by Envelop, and I am delighted to bring to you my today's guest. He's Jonny Mack. He's the co-founder and CEO of Fabric. Fabric is crowdfunding protocol. It moves capital between creators and communities. And if you're interested in crowdfunding, this is your episode. This is the easiest way to crowdfund on chain. And of course, Fabric utilizes NFTs as a proof of contribution. We're going to talk about that. Fabric has recently been featured on Envelop's NFT 2.0 aggregator. You might find the link in the description. By the way, you may also download the book, The Rise of NFT 2.0, Punks Are Dead, this book by Envelop, if you haven't done this yet. So it's great to have you on, Jonny. Thanks for joining our podcast today to talk about NFTs and Fabric.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, let's start with a little bit your background. Tell us how you got into Web3 space and what excites you most of all in this wonderful and rapidly developing space.
Yeah, so I first got into crypto, I think in 2014. I was listening to a podcast called Econ Talk with Russ Roberts, which I'm a big fan of, and he had someone on who was talking about Bitcoin. And I was interested in economics and like monetary policy and money, and hearing someone talk about this kind of like internet money, and there was like no central body that controlled it, and just captured my imagination and my attention. So I got really into Bitcoin and like went to Coinbase and bought some, and then didn't really have anything else to do with it, but I paid close attention to it. And then when I heard about Ethereum and the Ethereum crowdfund, I thought that was really exciting. And then in 2017, I decided I'd been kind of tinkering on different projects in the space, and I was working at Google at the time, and I was like, okay, I just want to work in crypto full time. So I left Google. I started freelancing for some early stage crypto startups, doing product design, and then pretty soon thereafter got connected with Coinbase, and then worked at Coinbase for a number of years in a freelance capacity on different projects, and have been building in the space ever since.
Well, so what do you find unsatisfying for you, for yourself, in the crowdfunding space, which has been developing a lot, about Kickstarter and so on and so forth? So why did you decide to run to fund Fabric? What market problem was it to solve it, and now?
Yeah, so I think when there was this big explosion of DAOs that were happening, in 2021, 2020, 21, 22 through 22 was like, that really inspired me, and I got really excited about this idea of, organizations, kind of like internet native organizations, sort of coming together, emerging, having this, means by which to pool capital, to make decisions, to make things happen, and seeing things like Constitution DAO. And even though it wasn't crypto related, seeing things like the GameStop kind of meme coin phenomenon. I think what I found so exciting about that was this kind of emergent collective action, and the fact that like each one of these individuals that were part of this movement had relatively like low leverage in society. These are not people who are like rich and powerful, and yet when their activities are coordinated, what emerges is actually high leverage. And so this idea that you have like individually very low leverage, but collectively very high leverage. And so that just like, I just became obsessed with this, and like couldn't stop thinking about it. And so decided I wanted to start a company that was kind of facilitated this, that made it easier. And when we started thinking about, so I kind of recruited my two co-founders who I'd known for, one for about 10 years, one for about 15 years. And we started thinking a lot about DAOs, and about kind of looking at the different DAO contracts that were out there, like Governor Bravo, the Moloch DAO contracts, the Tribute Labs contracts, Noun contracts, etc. We're like, all this stuff is really complicated. Like you have to do these like token issuances, and you have to set like quorum, and there's this like proposals. It's a lot. It's complex. And we're like, what's the simplest way to do this? And actually, what is really going on here? Like, what's the core sort of like theme? Like, what's the core thing? And what we distilled it down to is basically pooled capital to achieve shared values and shared upside. So the internet wants a way to basically like find other people who share their values, and they want to pool capital to achieve shared goals, and then share in whatever upside comes from that. And that's actually a very old thing. That's like a very, very old act. Like people have been doing that for centuries. And so I think what a smart contract provides is just a permissionless, verifiable way of doing that. That's kind of native to the internet. And so that's what we tried to build. We looked around and we're like, okay, there's different things out there that kind of support this, but not in this like ultra simple way. And so that's what we built. And then we put that on mainnet. It's on a bunch of L2s. It's permissionless. Anyone can use it. It's open source. We built this very user-friendly client for interacting with it. And when people ask us, well, how is this different from Kickstarter? One of the examples I like to mention is Oculus. Like Oculus Rift was a Kickstarter project, and it sold to Facebook for over $1 billion. And yet none of the early supporters to that Kickstarter campaign saw any of that upside. And I think that's just fundamentally broken. Like I don't think that's the future. And so the unique property of what we've built that's like kind of enabled by these crypto economic primitives is that money can move in both directions. So if you look at Web 2 platforms like Indiegogo, Kickstarter, GoFundMe, etc., like money only ever moves in one direction, from contributor to creator, and that's it. With what we've built, money can kind of move in two directions. So it can move from the contributor to the creator. The creator can then take that capital, they can deploy it in some profit producing, enterprise. And then they can take all or some of that surplus revenue, they can put it back into the crowdfunding contract, wherein contributors can withdraw on a pro rata basis. So in proportion to their initial contribution. And so that we couldn't find that. I was like, you can't do this in Web 2. There's no really super simple way to do it in Web 3. And so we thought the best way to implement that was with a protocol. We took a kind of geographically agnostic, view, which is like, this is an internet protocol and it should exist. And even though like this activity is highly regulated in some jurisdictions more than others, like we're not going to worry about that. We're going to just put it out into the world. So that's what we did. And we had some, good usage kind of amongst the Farcaster ecosystem early on when we launched. But ultimately, as we started to reach out to filmmakers, fashion designers, musicians, developers, basically saying, hey, look, why don't you raise money from your capital or from your community and then share some of the upside? It's like the regulatory risk is really high for doing something like that. And so you can try to issue a security, you can register with the SEC, you can, do accredited investor verification and KYC and all this stuff, but doing so massively increases the barrier to entry for contributors. So we're like, okay, it's just a lot of people like it and we like it and we're happy we did it. But like, I think that the regulatory environment right now essentially prevents it from being widely used. And so we were starting to think about like, okay, what's next? What should we build next? And people were asking us about Patreon. They're like, you kind of built like crypto Kickstarter. What about crypto Patreon? And so we started thinking more about this, like about subscriptions, about recurring revenue. We're looking at existing things like ERC20 tokens and NFTs, which are essentially like discrete value transfers between buyer and seller. It's like a one-time transfer of value, but it's often in exchange for continuous value, like an artist or someone who creates media or whatever is like token gating access, and they're continuing to do work, but the NFT is like this kind of like lifetime membership. And so we were like, yeah, like no one's really cracked that nut yet of like recurring revenue. And again, in this like super simple way. I mean, there are streaming kind of escrow contracts, there are other things out there, but they're not like super simple and easy to use. And so when we started thinking about subscriptions, we're thinking, how do you make that a protocol? We're also paying close attention to the behavior of like minting NFTs, you know, which I think has kind of proven itself to be this very durable end user behavior and kind of well understood mental model, like throughout this bear market. So we're like, how do you merge these two things? You know, how do you have an NFT, something as simple as an NFT, but that it's recurring, it's a subscription. And so that's kind of the thing that we just, I don't know, 4 months ago started thinking about, and just have been like heads down building, just recently launched.
Well, could you please clarify exactly what is the exact role of NFT here? Is it sort of proof of contribution, confirmation, or more than, or just a lifetime point of getting revenues? Clarify, please, again.
Yeah, sure. So basically, like when someone says, oh, this is, you know, it's an NFT or it's an ERC20 token or whatever, like what that really means, like technically, is that, you know, those are standards, and those standards are basically like, it's like, okay, if your contract has these things in it, then it's NFT compliant, and so it is an NFT, or it's ERC20 compliant. So practically what it really means is that we wrote a smart contract and it is NFT compliant. So it has all of the you know, the standard functions and so on that an NFT does. And so it's literally an NFT. It conforms to the NFT standard, but it has a couple other pieces. It has some like economic incentives for growth, for distribution, for retention, and that sort of thing. But functionally, what it actually does, it's not that complicated. It's pretty simple. Basically, the way most systems do token gating today is they check balance of, and they say, is it greater than 0 or is it less than 0? And if it's greater than 0, then that means you have the token and you can get access. And if it's 0, then you don't, and you can't have access. It's very simple. It's kind of this like, I don't want to say it's a standard because it's not, but it's just the way many systems do token gating. So what we looked at is, we're like, what if when you deploy an NFT contract, in addition to setting the price, what if you could also specify a period of time? So it's a price over time. And so rather than just saying this NFT is, you know, 10 DAI, you can say it's 10 DAI per month. And so what's actually happening is that the base unit of time in the protocol is seconds. And what you're really doing is you're selling, you know, a month's worth of seconds for 10 DAI, let's say, for example. It could be any ERC20 token, stable coin, it could be ETH, whatever. And so then what happens is I'm like, okay, so I go to your NFT mint page, I mint, you know, 10 DAIs worth of time, which is let's say 1 month of seconds. And then as time passes, the seconds slowly decrement until eventually they approach 0. And so in that month, while I have a positive balance of seconds, any system that's token gating will look at balance of, and they'll say, it's greater than 0. So you can have access. But then as time passes and as the seconds decrement and they get to 0, then my access to those systems will be denied unless I top up, unless I resubscribe. And so that's like kind of the heart of what the protocol does. Again, there's some other pieces to it. There's subscriber rewards, which is a way for the creator of the NFT contract to share a percentage of the revenue. And those have kind of a bonding curve like property to them in terms of how they get distributed. There's on-chain referral rewards, there's protocol fee splits, there's all these other sort of pieces, but the core idea is just basically adding this temporal dimension, you know, to the NFT, which is saying it's price over time, and then that's expressed in these base unit of seconds.
Well, let me ask you, Uh, does this look as a smart NFT, not dump NFT? Dumb, I say dumb, easy dump, not clever.
Yeah.
What is the conjunction with Envelop? How is Fabric related to Envelop? Why Fabric appeared on NFT 2.0 aggregator? Just because of utilizing NFT, or because of the smartness or the future progress of smartness? Your plans of making NFT smarter and smarter. I'm asking, trying to
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think that actually this sounds sort of silly, but I think like dumb things can be pretty smart actually. Like one of the like powerful things I think of the NFT is that it's so simple, and so like it's and I think there's a like making things simple is actually really hard, It's easy to make things complicated. But making things simple is very difficult. So I actually really like and appreciate how simple and elegant the 721 standard is. And it's created the opportunity for people like us to extend it and to say, okay, cool, let's build on top of that. So I like that a lot. And I think, I'm clearly, I'm obviously biased, but like I think that adding in this temporal dimension as we have like makes a lot of sense. We're not the first ones to have this idea. I think so far as I know, there's like been 3 previous attempts to do this as an EIP. There's EIP 1337. I forget the numbers of the 2 others, but they've tried to get subscription NFTs off the ground, but they just haven't gotten the the momentum that I think they've needed to get there. And so rather than waiting around for the developer community to kind of align around one, we're just like, we're going to just do it. We're going to do it the way we think it should be. We built an application on top of this protocol, which is called Hypersub. It's for artists. It's for people who create media, to create these kind of subscriptions and membership NFTs. And so we're just like full steam ahead. This is, what we believe should exist. And so we're going to put it out in the world. So yeah, I think like there will be future versions of it, and I hope other people take what we've done and they extend it themselves. I think that's how the whole kind of ecosystem gets smarter, But yeah, I definitely I wouldn't call, yeah, I as far as like smart NFTs, I just think of it as like an extension, It's like taking something and then adding these new elements to it just to give it more. It's like, I hope that continues. We're certainly going to continue doing that.
How do you see target audiences of Fabric from the fundraiser side and from the donors side? Who are they?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I think that the scarce resource, like in society, is hardworking, visionary, creative people. Like that's that's the scarcest thing. And I think like, and that's who we're going after. It's like in looking at different DAOs, oftentimes you hear this like people saying, oh, the community, or this emergent intelligence, this collective intelligence, and you hear a lot about this kind of the crowd, the group. But actually, I think if you look really closely and if you get really involved in communities, often what you see are what I think of as like prime movers, which is like very hardworking, charismatic, high conviction individuals that are like moving things forward. They're the ones that are like, organizing the group chats and organizing the events and like getting people excited about what's happening and aligned around a vision and so on. And like, it's those people, that are really rare, really hard to find, and really valuable once you get them. And I feel like it's those people who we're making tools for. So when someone like that says, what I really want is a way to pool capital, achieve shared goals, and then share in the upside, it's like, great, we have a tool for you. That's what crowd financing is. Or if they say, look, I want to create a piece of work over a long period of time. I want to earn recurring revenue on my journey, through doing that. It's like, great, we have infrastructure for you. We have a payment rail for you. That's a protocol. It's permissionless, it's verifiable, it's interoperable with this whole ecosystem of services. Here you go. Like that's like who our target audience is. That's who's upstream, I think, of everything else. Like crowdfunding contributors are kind of downstream of that person. Subscribers, are downstream of that person. So that's who we're seeking, constantly. We're trying to find and connect with those people and then do what we can to empower them.
Oh, let me ask you, what challenges do you see when designing your protocol now in the future and building the community around the protocol? And how do you solve the challenges to the current situation of that?
Yeah, I like this. I like this question a lot, and it's something I think about a lot and worry about. I think to me the biggest challenge. So when I worked at Google, I worked on Android, and prior to working on Android, I worked on WebOS at HP. So I have experience kind of working in firmware, and also worked on a lot of software products as well. And I think like these are useful lenses through which to see building protocols, because I think protocols sit somewhere in the middle. What you often hear about in the software world is this famous quote, move fast and break things. And in the software world, there's, it's kind of lionized this, shipping fast, ship fast, move super fast, do things that don't scale, just like execute, iterate super fast. And I think one of the reasons why that culture has emerged is because mistakes are relatively low cost. If you're doing continuous deployment and you ship a bug, well, you just roll back or you fix the bug and you move on. Whereas if you look at hardware, like that is not how hardware works at all. Like writing software like into the device, into the actual like firmware itself, doing updates, like you really have to get it right. It's not, you can't just push updates super fast. You have to make sure that like everything works, that there's no bugs, that there's no vulnerabilities. Like it's a whole intense long process. And with building protocols, like my view is that a protocol is non-upgradable. If you deploy a contract on chain and it's upgradable, it's not a protocol. It's more like an API, in the sense that there's an asymmetry between the person who created it and the person who's consuming it. They're not on a level playing field at all. And so if we take that view, which is like, okay, protocols are non-upgradable contracts, then it really forces you to slow down, because you're like, okay, if I put something on chain and I can't change it, I can't upgrade it, and I'd have to do a version 2, and then any system that's currently built on the V1 has to migrate to V2. That's a painful process. Plus, if I think the responsible thing, if your contracts are holding money, I think they should be audited. And so I just think that's a responsible thing to do. And so you're like, okay, we're going to ship a piece of software on this global computer that cannot be upgraded, and it's going to hold money. And so that means it needs to be audited, which is time consuming. So like it forces you to be like, okay, we have to think deeply about what we're doing here and about like what features it needs. And so it's very counterintuitive to building software, because software is just like build the smallest little thing and then get feedback from users. And then when they want more stuff, you like build the next smallest thing. But you can't really do that when you're building protocols, because of audit time and because of upgrade cycles. So you have to kind of, it's a lot more thoughtful process. You have to think like, so for example, when we were building this subscription NFT protocol, we added grants. You can like add addresses and you can grant them time. You can refund them time. You can the creator of the NFT contract can update the metadata. They can transfer ownership. There's all these features, which if you look at that purely through the lens of like software, we should have not wasted our time building those things because people didn't ask us for them. But if you think about it from the perspective of hardware, it's like, Well, a lot of these things have to do with interoperability, with the composability, and so they need to be there. And so like the thing that worries me always is that we're spending too much time building something that isn't validated yet. We're in our own ivory tower. We're in our own thought process, thinking kind of like projecting onto the world and into the world what we think people want, but we don't really know for sure that they want. But I don't really know how to balance this, because otherwise you just do a super simple contract. It doesn't really have much. You go through all the pain of deploying it and auditing it and so on, and then immediately people are like, oh, well, I want to do these 5 things, and you're like, okay, now we got to go through that whole process again. So I think there's this like balance of like moving quickly, and validating what you're building, but then also being like super thoughtful and kind of thinking ahead. And yeah, like this is something that worries me, like I guess just working in software for so long, it makes me like I think we should have very short shipping cycles. And when you're building protocols, like it's hard to do that. So I think finding that balance is really key. Yeah,
Well,
and as far as community goes, like, that's something that we're still kind of doing and learning about. We're pretty active in the Farcaster ecosystem. And yeah, just connecting with artists, connecting with people who are creating on-chain media, and trying to have a dialogue to where we're building things that they want to use.
well, do you have any plans for fundraising or scaling the business? If yes, share with us.
We raised a seed round in 2022, and we have kept the team very small. So it's just the 3 co-founders, and then we have 1 employee who's an engineer. And so, with my background in product design, and then the other co-founders all being technical, we just try to keep our burn rate really low. We have fees enabled for the subscription NFTs, so we're hoping to start seeing revenue there. But honestly, in this funding, in this kind of macro climate, I think raising right now is very, very difficult. And so with the amount of money that we raised initially, and with kind of this, like, we just try to be really disciplined in our spending, we're not interested in raising right now. But hey, if someone wants to chat about giving us money, like I'm happy to talk to them, and build the relationship, because I think we probably will raise another round at some point in the future. And so I think having that rapport is super helpful. But yeah, that's kind of, we're just focused on building. That's kind of our primary goal right now.
Well, Gary, you are, this is it seems to me that you are absolutely good guys. You're not in rush. You try to build a very quality product. Well, what's the best way to join a Fabric community, to start using community, to follow you, to get in touch? Give us the easiest steps to do it.
Yeah, I mean, just our website, with fabric.xyz is our website. You can see links to kind of protocol docs and to some of the clients that we've built. You could join our Telegram, and then Farcaster, we're pretty active there. So interacting with us there, I think those are all the primary places. Every time we do a campaign, we try to announce that across all of our channels. And so, you can join and contribute there. We have a couple active campaigns that are going on now. Our Twitter is another place. So it's with Fabric XYZ is our Twitter. I'm pretty active myself, or at least I try to be. So yeah, social media basically, and our website are the places to connect with us.
Well, needless to say that you may find on the links in the description of this video. It's pretty easy to navigate on the website. I really love the Fabric website. So go there, find the documentation, read the documentation, get in touch, join the community, and try to use and try to help these guys to reach their goals, to achieve their dreams of building a really quality product based on smart NFT, and be smart there. Well, thank you very much for watching and listening. Jonny Mack, the co-founder and CEO of Fabric, Medium Crypto MC, Media House Envelop. Where do you thank you for watching and listening? Stay tuned, be subscribed, be smart, join Smart NFT movement, and see you in the next episodes of the Smart NFT podcast. Bye-bye. Blockchain. BLOCK chain. Digital money, smart contracts, NFT, IDO, decentralization, transparency. So many opportunities, but so many challenges. Some financial manipulators, by their actions, confuse blockchain solutions and block their development. The idea that the blockchain should bring copyright and royalties protection to the next level is quite old, but the realizations of these ideas are not perfect at all. There is another problem of determining the value of a particular cryptocurrency or NFT. These and other problems need to be solved. Fortunately, the blockchain infrastructure is evolving. My name is E, Mr. E, and I represent the Envelop project. Many things have already been invented in the blockchain today. Tokens, smart contracts, platforms for creating your own coins, NFTs, exchanges for buying, selling, and exchanging all these blockchain resources. Envelop is another step in the development of crypto technologies. The protocol that works with NFT and cryptocurrencies. The idea is simple but disruptive. Let's assume you have an NFT, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Using the Envelop protocol, you can wrap the original NFT accompanied with several tokens. Technically, you get a similar NFT, but what is the breakthrough here? Once wrapped, the token has a number of additional features that were not available before. The minimal cost appears. It is provided with coins wrapped together with NFT. An asset wrapped with Envelop has a number of properties that allow the original author to receive royalties from the resale of that asset. Various rules can be applied to the wrapped token. For example, a lock period for unwrapping. It secures the asset till the determined moment or safeguards it from speculation during the hype period. At the same time, wrapped tokens can be transferred and traded. These are just some of the scenarios for using Envelop. NFTs become more popular, and the tools provided by Envelop expand the opportunities of NFTs utilization. Wide application possibilities are achieved due to the fact that, in addition to the protocol, the project includes a number of subsystems. The protocol provides functions wrapping and unwrapping. Oracle mechanics provides asset valuation using analytical algorithms. Index provides a summary assessment of several NFT assets with the common criteria. The project has its own token, which connects all elements of the system. Altogether, this is Envelop, a tool in the blockchain world for building modern and secure systems in various fields. Find more info about the project on the website. Envelop. Make your NFT valuable. Just practical, no hype.